Let me take you inside the gray. Not the Harlem gray of rain-slicked streets and morning fog. I'm talking about the institutional gray. The gray that eats color, eats sound, eats years. The gray of Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, of Alcatraz. This is where legends get buried under numbers, where they send kings to be forgotten. But some men are like black holes. Their gravity is so dense, so intrinsic, that not even light, especially not the pale, fluorescent light of a prison block, can escape it. When they locked the gates on Ellsworth, Bumpy Johnson, they didn't contain a storm. They bottled a force of nature. And inside that bottle, a new universe formed. Forget what you know about power on the outside. Out there, power is theater. A long car, a beautiful woman on your arm, a crowd partying as you walk into a club. It's noise. Inside, power is silence. It's in a look that stops a riot. It's in a word that carries farther than a scream. It's in the absolute stillness of a man who knows he cannot be owned. Act I. The entry and the establishment of SOVRIGNTY. The bus arrives. The chains come off. The processing line. It's a brutal ballet designed for one purpose: deconstruction. To turn a who into a what, a person into a problem, a man into a number. Bumpy moved through it, like a ghost moving through walls. The guards' taunts, the invasive searches, the ill-fitting uniform, it all washed over him like he was coated in Teflon. His eyes were elsewhere. They were taking inventory, not of threats, but of systems, of weaknesses, of the human machinery of the place. They give him his number. He barely glances at it. To the guard, it's an identity. To Bumpy, it's a typo, a clerical error in the ledger of who actually runs things. First day in the yard. This is the moment. The jungle telegraph has been buzzing for weeks. Johnson's coming. The yard is a geopolitical map of hatreds: black, Italian, Irish, Southern white, each group holding its territory, eyes sharp as shivs. Bumpy steps into the sunlight. He doesn't scan for allies. He doesn't post up defiantly. He simply takes a slow walk along the perimeter, a sovereign surveying lands that have, by necessity of his presence, just become his. A young, ambitious Italian kid from Mulberry Street, trying to make a name, shouts an insult, a test. The yard hushes. Bumpy stops walking. He turns, not to the kid, but to the older, seated Italian capo, a man named Vito, from Staten Island. Bumpy makes eye contact with him, a direct, diplomatic communique. It said, "Control your puppy, or the ecosystem we both exist in will become unstable." Vito, after a tense beat, gives a barely perceptible jerk of his chin. Two of his men pull the kid back. No words exchanged with Bumpy. Just a treaty ratified in a glance. Bumpy continues his walk. His rule had been acknowledged, not by the powerless, but by the only other powers that mattered. Act 2. The architecture of an inside EMPRI. Bumpy's power inside wasn't monolithic. It was a tripartite government, more sophisticated than the warden's. 1. The executive branch, the shadow warden. His cell became command and control, not with contraband phones, but with something more valuable: influence networks. He identified the prison circulatory system, not the guards, but the trustees. The kitchen workers, the library clerk, the laundry detail. These men moved everywhere, heard everything. A man like Bumpy, who valued information above currency, cultivated them. A kitchen worker's son gets into trouble on the outside. Bumpy, through a coded message on a legal pad, makes a call. Problem disappears. The loyalty becomes ironclad. Suddenly, the best food portions find their way to his allies. A guard planning a surprise shakedown of his cell. The library clerk slips him a specific book, a prearranged signal the day before. He dealt with guards not through brute corruption, but through strategic patronage. He learned their lives. He had men on the outside, loyalists who owed him everything, researched them. He knew which guard was drowning in medical debt, which one had a daughter dreaming of college. He didn't offer a bribe. He offered a solution, delivered anonymously, from a legitimate-seeming source. The guard's life improves mysteriously. The unspoken debt to the quiet, respectable inmate in cell block D becomes a chain stronger than any steel. These men became his eyes, his ears, and occasionally, his discreet messengers to the world beyond the walls. To the legislative branch, the code of Bumpy. In the absence of justice, he created a judiciary. He established a system of arbitration. So fair it became legendary. Inmates with disputes over disrespect, over territory in the workshop, could appeal to Bumpy's court. It usually convened in the law library or over a chessboard. Both sides stated their case. Bumpy listened, often in profound silence. His rulings were Solomonesque. He understood the currency of the inside: pride, safety, and small comforts. One famous case. A young black inmate from Brownsville had his radio-apprised possessions stolen by a larger inmate from the South. The thief was protected by a violent clique. Going through official channels meant a write-up and no returned radio. A fight meant the whole and probable injury. They brought it to Bumpy. He heard them out. He then ruled. The radio would be returned, undamaged, by chow time. Additionally, the thief would forfeit his own weekly commissary privilege of 2 packs of cigarettes to the victim for 1 month. To the shocked thief, Bumpy added, "And if your crew has a problem with this, you tell them to bring their problem to me. But if they do, the price goes up for all of them." The radio appeared. The cigarettes were delivered. The ruling stood. Why? Because Bumpy had the weight to enforce it. But more importantly, because the ruling was just. It restored balance, without requiring a blood sacrifice. It proved his system was more reliable and less costly than the jungle law it replaced. His word became the supreme law of the land. Point 3. The educational branch. The professor of power. This was perhaps his most enduring legacy. Bumpy saw the prison not just as a warehouse of criminals, but as a university of lost potential. His classroom was the yard, the workshop, the mess hall. His curriculum: strategic thought, economics, history, and philosophy. He'd take a young, volatile kid from the projects, a kid all muscle and rage, destined to bounce in and out of cells forever. "Why are you here?" Bumpy would ask. "'Cause I got caught," the kid would sneer. "No," Bumpy would say softly. "You're here because you only think 1 move ahead. You're playing checkers. The world, the DA, the cops, the man who set you up. They're playing chess." He would then begin the lessons, using the prison economy as a case study. "See that guy selling homemade hoach? He's a manufacturer. The guy trading cigarettes for it? He's a distributor. The lookout they pay in candy bars? That's overhead and security. They're running a corporation, a poorly run one, 'cause they'll get caught. How would you run it better?" He'd have them analyzing Sun Tzu's principles in the context of a cafeteria line dispute. He'd have them reading about the rise and fall of empires, drawing parallels to street gangs. He wasn't creating better criminals. He was creating smarter men, men who could analyze, plan, and lead. He told them, "The street will always be there. Your mind won't be unless you build it. This concrete, it's your forge. Don't let it break you. Let it shape you. These men became his disciples. They carried his teachings, his codes, his unshakable dignity back to the streets upon release. They became a generation of leaders instilled with the Johnson Doctrine. Act 3. The broker of kings and the peace of altruism. His most profound achievement was the Great Prison Peace. The administration's main tool of control was division. Set race against race, block against block. Keep the inmates fighting each other, and they'll never fight the system. Bumpy, the ultimate strategist, saw this as the fundamental weakness to exploit. He initiated a series of clandestine high-stakes diplomatic summits, meeting with the aging Irish boss from the Westies, the stoic Italian Caparegime, the intelligent but ruthless head of the Aryan Brotherhood. These meetings were acts of immense courage and trust, held in boiler rooms during isolated work details. His pitch was cold, clear, and irresistible logic. They measure their success by the number of stabbings in the yard. Every time one of us cuts one of us, we lose. We lose blood. We lose years off our sentences for fighting. We lose dignity. We prove their point that we're animals to be caged. What if the yard had no stabbings? What if the workshop had no riots? They would panic. Their only tool is chaos. If we remove the chaos, we control the peace. And the man who controls the peace controls the prison. He proposed a non-aggression pact, a clear set of rules for dispute resolution that bypassed the guards entirely, territorial understandings, a unified front that would turn the inmates from a divided mob into a coherent, if silent, negotiating body. It was the formation of a convict syndicate, not for profit, but for collective power and peace. It worked. Incident reports plummeted. The warden was baffled, then suspicious, then unnerved. The prison, on paper, became a model of calm. But it was a calm Bumpy Johnson orchestrated. He became the indispensable man. The warden, in a twisted way, came to rely on this stability, unaware that the inmate in cell 23 was its chief architect. Epilogue. The king in EX Leth, through all this, the AE. Connection to Harlem was not a lifeline he clung to, it was a kingdom he continued to govern. His word remained law. Business decisions, succession plans, disputes over territories, they were all put on hold or adjudicated, based on messages that flowed through the intricate network he'd built. A network of lawyers who were really diplomats, of visitors who were really couriers, of guards who were really ambassadors. When a young Turk named Red tried to muscle in on Bumpy's numbers operation in Harlem, thinking the boss was out of touch, the response was swift and terrifying. Red was visited not by enforcers, but by 3 old respected figures from the community. A preacher, a businessman, and a retired cop. They sat him down. The preacher spoke. Bumpy says you're ambitious. He respects ambition. But he says, you're digging in the wrong garden. He suggests you try the lot on 125th. He's already arranged the permits. It was an offer he couldn't refuse, wrapped in a threat he couldn't see, but felt in his bones. The message was clear. His reach was not diminished. It was projected. He ruled through myth, through legacy, and through the absolute certainty of his return. Bumpy in prison was the purest expression of Bumpy Johnson. Stripped of the costume, the setting, the supporting cast, all that remained was the formidable engine of his will and intellect. He didn't serve time. He commandeered it. He transformed a place designed to break men into a forum to demonstrate the unbreakable. The walls didn't make him less of a boss. They proved he was more than a boss had ever been. He was a statesman. In prison grays, a philosopher king whose throne was a folding chair in a prison yard, whose scepter was a book, whose crown was the unwavering respect of every man inmate and guard, alike who understood what real power looked like. He didn't. Do time. Time worked for him.